Hey there everybody, this is Ray Carsillo with another installment of From My Mom's Basement. Now of course a lot of people have been asking, Ray, how do we know for sure that it's your mom's basement, that it's your room? Well, what I'm going to do is that every week I'm going to start off with a different section of the room showing you some of my geek stuff. Of course, that there was part of my comic book collection. That's right folks, that's only a small portion of what's probably a collection of over 5,000 comic books. And of course, speaking about comics, we're going to start off really fast now with our comic book of the week. This week is Deadpool number 18. As you see, unfortunately, I'm already ahead of the game. I've already bagged and boarded it, but it is a great pickup. I give it probably an 8 out of 10. If you're a fan of Deadpool, of course, you've been following it. This is the end of the X-Men story arc, where he's trying to join the X-Men. He wants to be part of Utopia and Nation X, and of course, Deadpool is up to his old hijinks, going around trying to kill people, and of course, that's not what the X-Men do. So of course, it evolves into a huge fight. Lots of guns, explosions, Cyclops blowing people's faces off with his optic blast. It's fantastic. You also get to see another thing about the cover is that you might be able to tell it better now is that, oh, the lovely Domino. Yes, indeed. Gotta love comic book chicks. She has a strange fetish for chickens that is revealed in this comic, which, yeah, it just doesn't get weirder than that. But whatever, it's a comic book. So, anyways, a great pickup. The art is fantastic. Domino is drawn very well in it. Deadpool is his usual self. It's hysterical. And this is also a great point because if you don't want to pick up this comic, obviously next week is the beginning of a new next month is the beginning of a new story arc. So it's a good point for you to possibly get into it if you might be interested in picking up Deadpool. Speaking of comic books, we're also going to take a look at our news and notes now. Big news in the comic book world was that when DC announced that in April of 2010, Batman will return. And I'm not talking about Dick Grayson, I'm talking about Bruce Wayne, who of course has been missing in the caves of Afghanistan or somewhere since the final crisis. It's going to take 6 issues, it's going to start in April 2010, and right now all we know is he's going to be wearing a lot of like coyote pelts and stuff. So hopefully Bruce Wayne will be back and start dishing out justice the way that he can, and not the way Dick Grayson has been, which has been horrible. And I know DC sales have been hit because of it, because people like Bruce Wayne, people want Bruce Wayne, they want the original Batman back. In other news and notes, we move to the video game world. EA has announced that they will do a new Medal of Honor game to come out in 2010. This is, of course, basically in direct relation to the huge success from Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which has already sold 6 million units worldwide. That's huge. It's also already made over $500 million, as well as the Call of Duty franchise has now hit the $3 billion mark for its lifetime, of course, so that's over like 7 or 8 games, so that's not as big a deal as the $500 million mark for this one video game. In other video game news, South Peak has announced that they had bought the rights to the TNA video game franchise from Midway Games. Of course, Midway went bankrupt earlier this year, and so that means their huge properties are out there on the market to be bought up at any time. Mortal Kombat, Blitz the League 2, and TNA Wrestling. TNA Impact, of course, did very well in its first try a couple years ago. Should be interesting to see what South Peak can do with this dormant series. Expect that out around the holiday season next year as well. And that's a good time now, folks, to go into this holiday season's one of their biggest hits, Borderlands from 2K Games. I'm a huge fan of it. We're going to take a look at a couple of screens here. I had to give it an 8 out of 10. It's a fantastic game. I love the cell shading style they did with it. There's lots of explosions. There's lots of fights. There's lots of guns. I mean, there's more guns than you know what to do with. Some of the guns have powers. They can shoot fire. They can shoot acid. They shoot electricity. There's rocket launchers. I mean, you got triple rocket launchers. You have a car that has a homing rocket launcher on it from the very beginning. It's really a sweet game. The graphics are top-notch, and plus, of course, the theme song by Cage the Elephant is kick-ass as well. I would really look at picking this game up if you're into RPG shooters, similar to last year's Fallout 3. I dock a couple of points, though, giving it an 8 out of 10, because it is very similar to last year's Fallout 3, and so I don't, Copycat's not going to get 10 out of 10. Not to mention that the ending is very anticlimactic. I was very disappointed with how the end of the game finished, and so overall, I had to give the game only an 8 out of 10. Now, before I wrap up this week From My Mom's Basement, a friend of mine had given me a book this week called The Game by Neil Strauss. Now, as a geek, I lack game completely. I can't pick up girls if my life depended on it. And of course it's because some girls have called me like a dog or whatever before, and I have no problem with that because I'm warm, fuzzy, cuddly, and have no problem sticking my nose in a girl's crotch at any time. But this book is supposed to help me pick up a date, so I'm also going to give you weekly updates on how exactly this book is going to help me find the date and get out of my mom's basement. So, hopefully, with any luck, if we only have a couple more installments from my mom's basement, and then maybe we'll have it from, from my own apartment, because maybe I'll actually get a life at some point. But we'll have to wait and see. So far, I've only read a few pages, and the big thing they've been talking about so far is, like, alter egos and stuff now. So I don't know exactly who I would call myself as my alter ego would be. I don't know who. That's who I would call myself if I was going to give myself an alter ego. Wasn't too subtle there. But anyways, so that's it from this week from my mom's basement. And so, from my mom's basement, I'm Ray Carsillo signing off.